I loved the idea of Luftrausers from the very first glimpse I caught of it. I mean, flying fighter aircraft, hard difficulty and roguelite elements, dogfighting and dive bombing ships and submarines, action arcade shooting, boosting, exploding, retro graphics, extravaganza. What could go wrong? These things are so far up my alley, I would have never even thought of hesitating to buy the game once it released. Well, let's look at what did go wrong. If you are one of the lucky 50 people that watched my Is It Good episode on Super Puzzle Platformer Deluxe last week, you already sorta know what I think of Luftrausers, as I did compare the two titles in the video. The first 10 minutes or so were spent figuring out the controls and getting used to them. The game is played from a strict side perspective, requiring a bit of an adjustment from common airplane control schemes, but ultimately there is no issue here, it's simple enough. My first big issue came up right after that initial figuring out how to play phase. Luftrausers is an endless runner. There is no level, nothing that changes from run to run. It's always the same, deadly water underneath and cloud ceiling above. And always the same endless waves of enemies to fight. Now this is not necessarily an issue. Another similar title in that respect that comes to mind that I love to pieces is Race the Sun. Here you also play the same stages over and over again in endless high score chasing runner fashion. The difference, however, is that the stages in Race the Sun are very wide from left to right, allowing for meaningful exploration and figuring out optimal routes through power-ups, avoiding difficult obstacles. Luftrausers stage is just an endless empty canvas, no islands, no static elements, nothing to explore. Another similarity between the two titles is their progression system. Both games use achievements to award you with XP points that push you further. But in Race the Sun, this does eventually change your stages up. Just as the old ones start to become stale and figured out, it changes the entire playing field with new challenges and more content. In Luftrausers, you only unlock side grades for your ship components, most of which are just not seeing much or any use when I've already selected my favorites that I'm used to. To be clear, in Race the Sun you also get ship upgrades. They just went one step further and also altered the level and even unlock challenge levels, something that is also missing from Luftrausers. When you do decide to give the player achievements to progress, you also need to make sure that these achievements are extremely well designed and tested. You can't take your average achievements that you'd see in a quote-unquote normal game, so to speak, and just slap XP onto them. Unfortunately, it seems that this is exactly what they did do with Luftrausers. It's perfectly acceptable, for example, to have to kill 50 hat crabs in Half-Life 2 for a random achievement that just doesn't mean much. Luftrausers' all-important achievement goals look very similar, unfortunately. Kill X amounts of this or that enemy over and over again. And they never really even tell you what enemy in the level goes by what name. There's no built-in wiki or encyclopedia or anything either, which you see in more polished roguelite games, for example. Race the Sun has come up with much more interesting challenges where you need to hold down the left button for a long time during a level, or roll a lot, questioning your level route and forcing you to adapt intelligently. Luftrausers doesn't even implement the achievements well, honestly. After a while you get to fight a blimp, which is kind of a boss. I did actually make it to the boss several times in my earlier runs through the game, but only afterwards did I get that achievement to make it to the blimp again. So it hadn't remembered my previous runs, which seemed amateurish and annoying, honestly. Sometimes you already have killed X amounts of an enemy, but the game will only start counting when the achievement goal comes in. Now, everything I've said so far could be excused to a certain degree at least if the core gameplay loop and mechanics had depth and they were fun. Well, they aren't. The gameplay is mega simplistic. Apart from like hovering over ships to shoot down at them and then sort of side dodge their projectiles, I really haven't found any other like dogfighting techniques or anything that I could pull off. Mostly it boils down to mashing the fire button and hoping for the best. There's no multiple weapons, there's no pickup items that you could like use to shape your run, nothing. there aren't enough enemies for the concept either. If you force me to replay the endless run mode every time, give me variety, or start me in the middle of the run or something. I don't want to be stuck fighting the same 2 or 3 enemy types for the first 5 minutes of every run. That's tedious as hell. One last issue that frustrated me to no end was also the enemy balance. Some enemies are so fast that the only real danger is to have them crashing into you, dealing massive damage. Unfortunately, there is no radar map or arrows on the edge of the screen to warn you ahead of time. A lot of times I felt that there wasn't really anything I could do in these situations and just had to take the damage from the collisions. At this point, it might come as no surprise that Luftrausers is actually a Flash game port. I wasn't aware of that. $10, even almost 3 years later after release today, certainly wouldn't have you think that you'd get a basic toilet break game with no signs of the polish and care that you'd expect of a quote-unquote proper PC title. The final insult is maybe a minute detail, yet rounds off my impression of the game nicely. You can't quit. Vlambeer didn't even have the decency to bother putting in a quit option or making escape work or anything. You have to Alt F4. That's a new level of laziness. I'm frankly shocked to see through the board positive ratings online, including videos by Northernline and Total Biscuit, who I both respect very much for their integrity. I can't help but feel that the big names Vlambeer and Devolver Digital, both known for a certain level of quality usually, got away with a quick cash grab here. Thank you for watching. Until next time, my name has been Nihil, and bye bye.